Welcome to this episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise, where we dissect the latest developments in international news. We are just a week away from the US presidential election, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. To understand what the election means for the world and for India, we have with us the Federal's managing editor K.S. Dakshinamurthy, who closely follows international news. Thank you for joining. And my first question is, why should we be bothered about who wins in a US presidential election?
That's a question that we should really answer first because if you look at any part of the world and the elections that happen, it's an internal thing, it shouldn't really matter. But the US is very different because the US is the world's superpower. It continues to be the world's superpower, especially its importance has increased after the demise of the Soviet Union some 30 years ago. So the point here is uh, whatever happens in the US has an immediate bearing on the rest of the world because the US has a say in many different issues, and then so the person who comes there, the president who gets elected does make a difference, though on a broader scale, things really don't change, but they do change. It's like a combination of both, and they have an immediate impact. So that is the reason why the US presidential election, particularly, in fact, I don't think there is any other election that makes this kind of a difference for the rest of the world.
Okay, so what are the major global issues that the US election will impact?
See, there are, of course, two major issues. One is the issue of the assault on Gaza, which has been going on for the last more than a year. Then you also have the Russia-Ukraine war. These two are seriously really the major issues. And the US, now you may ask the question, how does the US come into the picture? The US has played a big role. Say, for instance, if you take the Gaza issue, the US has firmly backed Israel. And without the backing of the US, Israel probably could not have gone on like this for more than 1 year. Because it's very, very difficult to sustain an assault like this. And not only that, the Israel as a nation and its actions have been completely supported by the US, which has used its veto power in the United Nations. Not only that, the US, with the kind of influence it has over the world, has also managed to build a narrative that largely favors Israel. Mind you, all this is happening when more than 40,000 people in Gaza have died. Among them, thousands of civilians, a lot of women and children, non-combatants, who have all died in this thing, and it's continuing. So Gaza is a very important issue, and the US the who wins in the US elections will make an immediate impact. And as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, again, if you recollect, it was the US which egged on Ukraine to join NATO, and it completely backed Ukraine, and to the extent that it provoked Russia. And not only, I mean, it provoked Russia, but then, and Russia invaded Ukraine. Not that just one action justifies the other, but here we are discussing the impact of the US on world affairs, and Ukraine-Russia war is a direct effect of the US force on Ukraine, and we see what's happening. Again, this war is continuing. It's started in February 2022, and it continues in full swing. It's had a massive impact around the world. So these are two really major issues as far as the US is concerned and how the world will see it.
Okay, now let's take each candidate one by one. So, what would a Trump win mean for the world and particularly for India?
Okay, so as far as Trump is concerned, if you let's take the issue of Gaza and Israel. Trump has been particularly close to Israel, and his support for Israel is, in fact, borders on the extreme. During his first term in office, um, there was a massive cut in aid for the Palestinian relief organizations, voluntary organizations which are working for the Palestinians. And there was also an attempt to kind of stitch together a kind of a peace deal. And the peace deal actually meant that the Palestinians would completely get marginalized. So his son-in-law, Kushner, he put together a peace deal. Of course, it was completely rubbished by the Palestinians. It never took off. Now, as far as and the other very important decision he took was recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. What it basically did was it took the world by surprise, and especially the Palestinians. So, and then because it has a larger implications later on if the two-state solution comes through, because Jerusalem is a probable capital for the Palestinians. So now the U.S. embassy during Trump's time moved to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, and it's recognized Jerusalem as the capital. So Trump is unabashedly pro-Israel. Okay, and given that Israel is already bombarding Gaza, and it has also now increased in its canvas. It's also included Lebanon in the Iran is in the picture. So at a very sensitive time when the world is looking at a possible expansion of this conflict, which can almost come to a point where some can even interpret this as the beginning of the Third World War. You have Trump coming into, if he wins the elections, it's not good news for the Palestinians at all. And as far as Israel is concerned, they will really get even more of a push to, do whatever they are intending doing in Gaza without any kind of a check. Now, as the other thing, if you take the Russia-Ukraine war, that is a little interesting because Trump has very clearly said that he is going to end the war in one day. I mean, not even a month, not even a week. He says once he gets elected, in one day he's going to end the war. Now, why is he saying that? He's saying that because there seems to be some kind of a close link between Trump and Putin. In the past, Trump has even praised Putin. He's come across as pro-Russian. So he probably is trying to use his relationship with Putin to end the war. But the fear amongst the Ukrainians is, will he, justify the war in the sense, will he end up compromising the interests of Ukraine? How is he going to end this war? This is $1 million question. So everybody is looking at it. But Trump is also given to bombastic statements. He'll say, I'll do this, I'll do that. And, we don't know whether he's actually going to do it or not. But this is what he's claiming to do. For instance, in the past, in his first term, he claimed he's going to end the North Korea, South Korea conflict. But he was not able to do it. So it's not that he does whatever he says. So this is as far as the Ukraine issue is concerned. As far as India is concerned, Trump is, his unpredictable character comes to the fore. If you recollect, Trump had a great chemistry with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They had this Howdy event in Gujarat. Then, Modi went to Houston, and then they had a great time. Modi, in fact, said that he's going to support Trump for presidency, and which he lost eventually in 2020. So they have a great personal chemistry. So does it mean that all good things are going to happen to India? No. So the thing with Trump is he will say all this, but when he does something, he will also do something very, very practical and which need not be pro-India. For instance, he removed India from the special preferential list for which India was on that list for a long time, which means that India was given a lot of leeway as far as its tariffs were concerned and all that. And Trump simply removed India from that. And it continues to remain that way. Okay, so this is a big, so this is what Trump is. So, but then a lot of support, Trump has picked up a lot of support in the Asian community, particularly Indians, because they think that he's going to be very pro-India. They don't, they have not seen the, the unpredictability factor in Trump.
And what about Kamala Harris? What would it mean for India and the rest of the world if she wins?
So Kamala Harris, that way, is a far more, is a person who can be more easily, analyzed in terms of the foreign policy. For instance, if you take the Gaza issue, the Israeli assault on Gaza, Kamala Harris's view is that uh, she is fully in support of Israel in terms of the security of Israel, At the same time, she wants a ceasefire in Israel. She wants the assault to end as far as Israel is concerned. So this is her line, which is slightly different from that of Trump. But as far as Ukraine is concerned, she's completely for Ukraine, which basically continuing the line of Joe Biden, the current Biden administration, which has in fact supported Ukraine. She says she will continue with the same line, which means that you can see a prolonged war between Russia and Ukraine. There is going to be no, compromise or a consensus or anything of that kind. So as far as Ukraine is concerned, it's going to continue the way it is. But there may be an outside chance that some kind of a resolution might happen as far as Gaza is concerned. Coming to India, now what will Kamala Harris mean to India? See, Kamala Harris obviously has a partly, she has an Indian origin. Her mother is Indian. We have spoken and read about this a lot. But at the same time, she has not really identified herself with an Asian. Forget about being an Indian. She's identified herself more as an African, Afro American, and she has taken her father's line, which is he was from the Caribbean. So that apart, but that's not to say that she will not do anything favorable for India. With the Democrats, generally, it has been a very even line as far as India is concerned. As the only thing that worries Indians or people in India, the Indian government, is that the Democrats, which includes Kamala Harris, they have a very clear-cut view on human rights, and wherever they see, a violation of human rights, they will speak up. And India has always had to be on the defensive as far as Kashmir is concerned. So this particular issue is what alienates some not Asian, Indian voters in the US against Kamala Harris. So there is a little bit of a doubt over what her perspective will be on Kashmir. And also these days you have this increasing assault on minorities, a lot of attacks in India. This has been much reported everywhere. And even the US has come out with some reports which have accused India of favoring the majority and targeting the minorities. So these are issues that Kamala Harris will not compromise on, because she will say what she's expected, or because that's also the ethos of the Democrats. So she will be very strict on these issues. But as far as trade is concerned, as far as political relationship is concerned, alliances are concerned, it will not make that much of a difference.
Don't internal issues in the US have any impact in the rest of the world?
The internal issues in the US are, of course, it means a lot. For instance, abortion, the right for to woman to abort, is a very, very US centric issue, and it will not have any impact in the rest of the world. Though people will be watching it, it won't have a direct impact. But what may impact the rest of the world is the immigration policy. Trump, again, for all his, for people perceiving him as pro-India or pro-Asian, is very, very hard on immigration. He's already made it clear during his campaign that he is not for unbridled immigration. Of course, he's completely against illegal immigration. He has accused the Kamala Harris team of encouraging and accusing them of opening the borders to as many illegal immigrants as possible. So on the immigration issue, and then if you recollect in the previous term of Trump between 2016 to 2020, it was very difficult for many Indians to get green cards, for them to get citizenship. It was heavily delayed. It was not easy to get visas. A lot of visa applications were rejected. So during Trump's time, it's always a problem for migrants. Of course, they always say that they're against illegal migrants, but if you look at it in reality, they're also not very much for immigration and for migrants to come in. So this issue will have an impact on India, because India today, you have a number of thousands of Indians traveling to the US in under many heads, as people resettling in the US for temporary visits, for jobs, for education, etc., etc. So this will have an impact. The internal issue of the US will have an impact on India. So it will make a difference. Now, as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, she has been accused of being soft on immigration. So the perspective of the Democrats, for instance, if you take the Joe Biden administration, things eased a lot when Joe Biden became president. And over the last 4 years, things have been very easy. A lot of Indians have traveled to the US. It's almost like been like the past. So that will continue if Kamala Harris becomes the president. Now, this is something that I mean, whether this matters to Indian Americans in the US, we are not very sure. So, and whether it will make an impact in voting. But I can tell you, as Indians living in India, Kamala Harris, a return of Kamala Harris would mean a lot more relaxed immigration policy.
Thank you for your input, Dakshin. Viewers, stay with us for more such interesting discussions.